Can I just take this in?
Yeah, yeah. There you go.
Hi. All right. Don't make me cry.
Welcome to
Hi,
Temple
Maria.
Emmanuel, Don.
Hi. Thank you.
But by the way, so when was the first time you were in a temple?
I think it was. I was in my 30s or 40s. Probably. I think it
Wow.
was late 30s. And a friend of mine whose wife was Jewish, and he converted, and we were in Chicago. It was freezing, and I think it was January. And I ended up carrying the chuppah in the wedding.
Fantastic.
Fixing her wedding gown, and then I had to bring up the thing that to break the glass to give to whatever. So that was my first.
The thing that you break the glass.
Yeah, to break the glass. I am so grateful that you all are here. Thank you. Hi, Sarah. How are you? Hi, Maria. Hi, Bird. How are you?
You want to just go?
No, I'm just. I can't believe that these people showed up for me. Thank you. It's an honor. I'm really grateful that you guys get.
I think.
Hi, Steve. Hi, Mario. How
everybody is thrilled. Everybody's thrilled to be here for you. And
hi, Alec. Hi, how are you?
And we're thrilled.
Hi, Sherry Shepard.
Who's that in the back on the 10th row?
I don't know. I can't tell. I'll start calling out names here. But thank you all for coming. Thank you for doing this as well, Jeff.
Well, I think for those of you who don't know, I'm thrilled to be here and to do this with Don, because Don, as you know, Don and I worked together for many years, but far more importantly, Don's a really good friend of mine, and actually, you know, I've known Don for a long time, and we have never once, I think, talked about God or religion or anything close to that. And so when I read this book, which is published tomorrow, by the way.
You threatened that I would see God sometimes when you got mad at me.
Well,
you were gonna...
I said some other things to you, but I actually love this book, and it was incredibly moving. And so I'm thrilled to talk to you a little bit about it. And I hope everybody has a copy. But just tell us about this book. I mean, you know, I Once Was Lost. It's deeply personal. Why'd you write it now, and who's the book for?
Well, I started writing this book in 2022. This is before I left CNN. And
well, you didn't just leave CNN, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Before I got
that's a whole other story that is in the book, but we'll get there.
Before I got kicked to the curb, and it was supposed to be, you know, I started, you know, I'm a child of the 70s and 80s, and so, you know, the rise of the religious right, and, you know, the moral majority. So I've watched all of that happen, and then I was, by the time I was in news, old enough to be in news, the Tea Party came along. And then MAGA came along, and I saw people just sort of using the Bible and religion as a political and religious cudgel to either ostracize people or just to, you know, sort of shape things the way that they wanted. And so I started writing the book, and then, you know, I left CNN and I had to put the book down because I had to deal with some things, and it became a completely different book. And I was actually really hurt by some of the things that people were writing about me, especially in relation to my relationship with women, which just was not true. And I could not really fight back contractually. I wish I could have, but I couldn't. And so I wanted to dedicate this book to all of the women in my life. And I remembered as a child growing up, my first brush with the Holy Ghost was my grandmother. She got filled with the Holy Spirit in church. You know how it is. Yes, Lord! Boom. I was on her lap and I hit the floor.
Yeah.
And I started crying, and I remember all of these women rushing over to pick me up, including my sisters. And I remember Miss Johnson, who was like, you know, big, heavy-set woman, and she was like, I was crying and I couldn't breathe because I was like in her bosom. So, but all of these women who had sustained me. So I dedicated it to the women in my life, who obviously include my mother and my sister, and all of the women who have sustained me throughout.
Yeah,
life,
you tell that
including
story.
Maria, who was my executive producer and for many, many years.
Yeah, and you tell that story in the book, and it's incredibly funny, actually. But actually, let's go there now, because you talk about the women in your life, and actually the book starts with an incredibly moving prologue that's a letter to your sister. And you start by writing, "How you doing up there? Up there is heaven." Your sister Lisa drowned in 2018. And that had a profound effect on you. Tell us about that letter you wrote to her in the book.
Well, I'll tell you, but as you were saying that, it reminded me of you were there when that happened. I got the call in my office, and Maria was there, and you were there, and my mom called and said my sister had died, and she was hysterical. She said, "I just saw her. They pulled her body out of the lake," and I just froze. I didn't know what to do. And you guys did everything for me. Um, Jeff said, "Make sure he gets on a plane," and you didn't. Jesus, sorry, you didn't leave the office until I got on a plane and went home. So thank you, and thank you, Maria. I write to my sister because that's really when I started questioning my faith. Because I'd always grown up with a faith, not religious, but I grew up with a faith in God, and that's when I started questioning my faith. After that, why would, God take my sister? And Maria and I actually talked about it because God took her brother. She lost her brother, and, not pretty close to each other, and actually, a real span of time. And so that's, one of the ways that we bonded. So I started questioning, and that was really sort of the impetus to this book. And there's another story that relates to my college friends when I went to the temple they were visiting me in Sag Harbor for like a long weekend in the summer. They came to visit. And this was during the time I was questioning my faith after my sister died. And my friend said something about religion, and I said, "If you want to believe in that fairy tale." And he said, "I don't have a choice, I have to." And I really thought about it, and I said, "You know what, I have to as well." And so that was sort of the impetus to the book.
Yeah. And in fact, you write in the book that the fallback plan when something like that tragedy happens is to say that the Lord works in mysterious ways.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of that, you decided to go figure out where that was in the Bible.
Yeah.
What'd you find out?
It's not there.
Yeah.
It's not there. No, I had, growing up, you would have thought, because I went to a Catholic school, and I was a Baptist, so I went to, we prayed for everything. We went to, if we took recess, we prayed, and seriously. And we church mass every Friday, and, I knew every prayer. And now when I go to church with my husband now, whose family's Catholic, and I do the mass, so much has changed from what I remember the mass as a kid. They changed some of the words. So it's familiar, but then yet not so familiar. But it's not there, as I found a lot of things that people think are in the Bible is not actually there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you just mentioned, by the way, that you grew up in a Southern Baptist church.
Yeah, Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church.
Yeah, exactly. So are you a religious person today?
I'm not religious. I'm a believer, but I'm not religious. And I think.
Do you believe in God?
Yes, I do. I believe in God.
So you said that you're like your stepfather, who said he was a believer, but not churchy.
Not churchy, because I think churchy causes people to be too judgmental. Because the Bible is parables, it's allegory. It's supposed to teach us how to be, and how to act, and how to treat each other, and not how to judge each other. And it's not actually a book of facts and science. And people treat it that way. And in this day and age, people are using that as if it's some sort of factual science that we have to use. And in order, God is this big boss on top of us, telling us what we need to do and how we need to act and judge, and he judges us. And that's not what the Bible is about, and that's actually not what religion and faith are about.
Yeah. Let's talk for a second about the title, I Once Was Lost. As many people know, that those are the lyrics of a very famous song that you grew up singing in that Southern Baptist church in Louisiana. And in this book, you tell the story of hearing that song, but in Spanish. And when you were in the back of a Latino Baptist church in Uvalde, Texas,
Yes.
where you were there covering the school shooting. And and you obviously didn't understand the words, but you knew the melody. And that leads to an incredible story in the book. Tell us about what happened after you heard that song and those words and those lyrics and the interview that followed.
Well, there's more to the story than that, because that was the song where I got knocked off my grandmother's lap.
Right.
And that's why I named the book that, because that was her favorite. That and Precious Lord and His Eyes on the Sparrow. That was her three favorite hymns. And so that was a song where I got knocked off of my lap, but then off of her lap. But then as I was there covering, and I'm sitting in the back of that church, or standing with the photographer, and I recognized the melody, but not the words. It reminded me that we're all really alike. We're more alike than we are different. And, even though we spoke or speak different languages, we are all alike. We're all the same. We're all human beings of the same race. But then later, it got me to thinking and about God and about how much we're alike. And, by then, I think my faith had started I had started to reestablish my faith, and I had a preacher on, the preacher who did that particular sermon that night. And he started talking about joy, and that we should have joy, and that's what that's what would sustain us. And
joy in our hearts.
Joy in our hearts. And I really challenged him live on television. I don't know if you remember that. And I said, really, how can we have joy in this moment? How can people have joy in this moment? I don't know if I believe in that, Reverend. And he started to think about it. And I think he actually changed his mind live on the air and said, it's probably going to be a long time before, basically I'm paraphrasing, before people can have joy in their hearts. But I believe that it's just not, I don't believe that you can just have joy in your heart because you're supposed to have it. I think it's active. We have to work for that joy. We have to protect our children. That joy will come for many of us when we have better gun laws in this country, when we actually start caring and thank you, and doing what the Bible says, or what Torah says, or what the Bhagavad Gita, what any religious doctrine says about protecting and loving one another. That's when the joy will come. That's where it comes from.
Your relationship with God has been challenged by more than what happened there in Uvalde, or in other school shootings, or what happened to your sister. But it's also been challenged by the very core of who you are, which is a gay Black man from the South. When you were young, you write that you prayed to please make you not be gay. And you write that one of your aunts still thinks that you just need to pray away the gay. Talk to us about being gay in the church and what that has meant to you.
It's being gay in the church and being gay in America. I write in there, how do I say it in the book? That as a gay man, I have a complicated relationship with God, or the Bible, or with the church, not God, but with the Bible and church. And as a Black man, I have a complicated relationship with the flag. And then I go through and I tell why. Because the Bible, as interpreted through the people who were, I call them the control people, as interpreted, meant that I didn't deserve to be here. I didn't deserve to be who I am, that I was an abomination, that my life would have to be lived in secrecy and or in shame. And why would my family or the elders in my life be pushing me into a place, or into a belief that did not show love and was unaccepting to me? So, that's, as you know, there's a complicated relationship even with the audience that I serve, and even with Americans, because I think the criticism of me is often rooted in racism and homophobia. And that's a tough place to be when you're in the public eye. And so to have that in my public life, I needed to establish a safe place in my private life for people, and someone who loves me, like my husband, like Allison, and people who are accepting of me no matter who I am. And so I went back and I studied and talked to different people about these Bible verses. People talk about Leviticus and whatever, and it's all in the interpretation of it. And I think that evangelicals, especially in the religious right, and people who believe in religious nationalism, they like to take things out of context for control.
And why do you think they do that?
Because they want to control people. It's power. It's power, it's control. And if you are used to having the preeminent voice and you think it's being taken away, then people are afraid to lose that control and power. And it's also money.
And when they see you and hear you and watch you on television or watch you on whatever outlet they see you, makes you a bigger target?
Of course. I think that's one of the reasons I'm not there. And I don't know if you would even disagree with that. I'm not supposed to have a big mouth.
Do you have a big mouth?
I do have a big mouth, of course. I will always have a big mouth. I remember, I just saw your face. I remember when I went to the morning show and Alex saw me. You saw me somewhere. You said, "We love you at night. Nobody wants to see you in the morning." Do you remember telling me that? Nobody wants to watch you in the morning, and you were right. But
I told you that too. But anyway, yeah. If you told him that, raise your hand. Anyway, but by the way, you also talk in the book about someone who has 10,000% wholeheartedly accepted you for who you are and never questioned that.
Is my mother. Mom. That's my mom. Yeah, I can't imagine. I don't even want to imagine, but I know this sounds, really morbid, but I can't imagine my life without her. Just because she's been my rock every morning. I'm just gonna let me just read this because I'm surprised she hasn't texted me now. But
we're gonna FaceTime her now. So anyway,
I should FaceTime her. But every morning, I can't believe I need glasses for everything. I'm at that age. So this morning, good morning, my handsome sunshine. Heart, smiley face.
Wait, don't read what I wrote you.
Oh shoot, sorry. That's Jeff. How are you? What are y'all doing today? By the way, what are you doing up so early? I was up looking for sound bites for my show earlier this morning. Good morning, my handsome sunshine. How are you? And what are y'all doing today? Kind of almost the same thing. Good morning, how are you? And then I say, good morning, I'm heading to Sag Harbor for a fundraiser for my friend John Avalon. Okay, enjoy the weekend. I'm just chilling and playing solitaire on my phone. Smooches. By the way, tell them I said hello for me. Tell them hello for me every day.
Yeah,
every
beautiful.
day. And I FaceTime her every day. Yeah, I don't know what I would do without her.
It's beautiful. As I mentioned, the first book you wrote was a New York Times bestseller. This Is the Fire.
Debuted at #1. Wait, Bird, do you remember when you called me and I said, "Is that good?" And you were like, "Are you out of your mind?"
And that book was really about race in America. So trying to connect the dots here, how has or what role has God played in the history of race and American racism?
Well, I kind of talked about it a little bit when, mentioning how people use it. I think people use God, again, to control. And I think that especially America, it's supposed to be about religious freedom unless it's not Christianity in this country. Especially when you think about, Louisiana, now they're trying to put the 10 Commandments in schools, which, if you're in a Catholic school, then okay, fine. But in public schools, it's, I imagine if they wanted to put something, from Islam on a wall, right? What would happen? But I think most of the wars obviously have been fought over religion and God. And it's the furthest away from God. But speaking of this country, I believe that religious theocracy is pushing us away from God, and it's pushing us away from democracy. And I think that we have to be really careful of it, especially in this day. You can applaud if you want to. I feel like Jeb Bush, please clap. No, I'm joking. But so I feel like we have to be really careful about that, because that's happening now. And you look at the banning of books for people who don't really want us to learn about the true history of the country. And quite frankly, Black history is American history in this country. Native American history is American history in this country. And then I think all of our histories shared together is American history in this country, and we should be learning all of it, including why we left Europe, why we supposedly left for religious freedom. But I think they mean religious freedom. I know they mean religious freedom just for evangelicals, rather than just for all religions. But in the history of the world, God has been used as a cudgel. What we have to remember is that our concept of God and Jesus is very similar to other stories that came before.
What do you mean?
There are other stories. If you look at, we're talking about, I'm not saying that people should not have a belief in God and Jesus, but there are other figures in history who have a very similar story to Jesus, and other religions who don't believe in Jesus who have a very similar story. Now, all the stories are similar, so I believe that there's something there. But we all know that Jesus wasn't born on the 25th of December, and that is Christmas or whatever. We all know that that is, that's a business, right? That's to make money. But that's tough for some people to hear, because they actually believe that that is a historical fact, and it's not.
Well, you talk about a number of stories in the book, and you try to connect them to the present moment in America. One of those involves what happened to Abraham and
Moloch, when he goes up to and then he has to sacrifice his son, and instead sacrifices a ram. But I believe, and there's a story. The book can tell it better than I am, but they decide to do what Abraham does and not what Moloch does, and that's sacrifice your child.
Right.
Because I write in the book, I come from a religion that believed in human sacrifice and child sacrifice and blood letting and all of that. And I say, and that religion is called Christianity. Because we like to think of, as Christianity is the only proper religion and the most civilized religion. And throughout history, Christianity hasn't always been that. And even, I think, has a terrible history of, I believe, sort of mental cruelty when it comes to people who are part of the underserved communities, part of the LGBTQ community, women, people of color, Black people, immigrants, have all been demonized through religion and the Bible at certain points in time. And so we should be aware of that so that we don't keep repeating it.
I should let everybody know we're going to open this up for questions from the audience in about 10 or 15 minutes. But and we'll come back to some of the stories about God and connected to the book, but also in the book, you delve into topics that are quite personal and that have happened to you. And so I want to touch on some of those here and now, and one that you really have not talked much about. You talked about it on a podcast, but you really haven't talked much about it. But that's about what happened at CNN, and you were fired at CNN, and you go there in this book, really for the first time. And I happened to talk to you on that day too. Why were you fired?
I don't know. I don't. I've never, I wrote, listen, this is all very public. And I just want to say, I love my former colleagues at CNN. Many of them are very dear friends. And in the book, I was very protective of them because
You are.
They've gone through a lot. And they don't need to go through, I don't need to help them, go through anything more. But yeah.
Why do you think you were fired?
I think I was fired because I have a big mouth. Because I think that they wanted to move the network in a different direction, and they thought that perhaps I was in the way of doing that.
Do you regret some of the things that big mouth said?
Yeah. Do I regret some of the things? Yeah. Yes and no. I do. If you know the whole Nikki Haley thing, I shouldn't have said that, right? But it was not. It was dumb, right? And by the way, I'm not my best in the morning. This is early in the morning,
Clearly.
clearly. But I know it was misconstrued. What I was doing was I was trying to take up for people who, for older people, I thought she was being an ageist, and I thought about poll taxes, which I write about in the book, for my grandmother, or I thought about my friend Clive Davis, who's in his 90s and sharp, and I thought about Nancy Pelosi, and I thought about other people and other women who were sharp, and I thought that she was doing. I was surprised that she would say something like that because of how women had been treated in society, and this is what society would think about her, not necessarily what I thought. And so, but people didn't hear that, and I could have been clear, and I should have been clear because that's my profession. But you know, I think under a different time and different management, I would have been allowed to explain that.
Yeah. You also relay in the book the interview.
But I don't. That's not why I was fired. I don't believe I was there for 2 or 3 months after that happened.
Right. Oh, and
And
then
everyone thinks that it's that
right.
because that's probably the most prominent thing that they heard about.
Well, then there was an interview towards the end with Vivek Ramaswamy that also you write about in the book.
I was gone 4 days later.
Right. So
because he said that Black people achieved their freedom during the Civil War through the Second Amendment with the help of the NRA.
Yeah, you didn't think that was right.
I didn't at all, and you saw how it played out. Did you think I said anything wrong? No, but so yeah, I don't know if that's it, but I know that I was gone 4 days later.
Yeah, you know, people really miss you on CNN.
I know. I do. I hear every day. And you know, I just have to say, hey, you know, I'm doing something else now. But I miss. Someone asked me. Oliver Darcy asked me the other day in an interview for the book, and he said, "Do you miss being on cable news?" And I said, "I don't miss being on cable news. What I miss my family, people that I worked with for almost 2 decades, people who I know and love, and I saw every day. And you become family, especially when you go through, you know, the sort of things that we went through or we go through as journalists. You really create a bond, and that is something that I do miss every day.
One of the I want to talk to you about what you're doing now, but one of the first things you did as you came back professionally was you had a show for I think a day on X.
No, it wasn't even a day.
Oh, it wasn't a day?
think I had zero Scaramucci's.
Yeah. But you know, actually, you and Tim were at the U.S. Open yesterday, and when you were walking out, I think you saw Elon Musk.
I did. I wanted to say hello.
Did you?
No, but because he had all these fanboys around him, and Tim was like, "There's Elon," and I almost like went over to say hello, and then someone said, "Hi, Don," and I looked over. It was Jenna Bush, and she sort of distracted me. And anyway, right, Tim, and then we saw Hoda and Savannah. We were just like, "Hi," whatever. So thank God they distracted me. But
why? What would you have said to him?
I would have said, "Hi, Elon. Hey, Don Lemon. How you doing?" And just I would have kept walking. I don't have anything. I have nothing against him. I did what my job.
Seriously?
Well, no, I meant I went into it with that, with nothing. I wasn't trying to get him or anything, but it was very interesting what happened. That's all I'll say. And as you know, I can't really talk about it.
I know. So that's moving on. But again, I'm going to open it up in about 5 or 6 minutes. So you alluded to. Tell everybody here what are you doing now, and where can they see that?
So you can see me and hear me. You can hear me on iHeartRadio. You can hear me on Spotify and Apple. The audio version of my show, which is on YouTube, is a podcast on those other platforms, on the streaming platform. And so I have a streaming show on YouTube, which is doing very well. Within like 2 or 3 weeks, we had like 100 100,000 subscribers, like a month or so, or 2 months, 100,000 subscribers. And the New York Times writes about how I was on, they said I was on vacation, but I was actually on my honeymoon for the debate. And I did the show for the debate
Your hotel room. They
from our,
said.
we'll say, hotel room. I was actually on a boat.
That was a nice hotel.
And I mean, we had all of these viewers, and I was shocked that so many people were actually watching, and it was very heartening to me. So that's what I'm doing now. But I'm also leaning very into social. My social media guys are here, and thank you. We have been going around, and you know, everyone's like, "You're gonna." Let me tell you the story about the debate. I had some friends, these Black women, who called me up and said, "Your voice is missing from this conversation. Are you coming to the debate?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Yes, you are." They were running the debate. I mean, not the debate. Sorry, the convention. They said, "Are you coming to the convention? Your voice is, we need to hear your voice. It's missing in this whole conversation on cable and whatever. And so come." And I had access beyond what press had. I was in, back wherever everybody was, and so I had this amazing access. And so I decided to take a road trip across the country with my social media guys and just talk to people. And the stuff that we learned on the road was fascinating. And the New York Times, their podcast, The Daily, this morning, wrote about Kamala Harris and whether, the bounce or whatever, the excitement, whether it's reached its peak or whatever, and people not really knowing who she is. I said that on Jen Psaki 2 weeks ago. That's what I learned by being on the road. But people did not want to hear that. And I also learned that there are more African Americans, women and men, than I thought that would be supporting Donald Trump. And
Why do you think that is?
I think that they're ignorant about facts. And I don't mean that I'm just telling the truth. I don't mean like, hey, you're ignorant. They're not dialed in. They think that Donald Trump gave them money for nothing. They don't remember.
You mean checks during the
Right.
In COVID?
COVID check, yeah. The stimulus check.
Right.
And so they're like, he gave us a stimulus check. And they think that he gave them a stimulus check because his name was on it, even though he held the check up to put his name on it, even though Joe Biden also gave them a stimulus check. But it said it came from the federal government for Joe Biden, but it had Donald Trump's name on it. It worked. And they didn't understand that check didn't come from Donald Trump, that it came from a Democratic Congress and Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah.
And so, I had to inform people, but I shouldn't say I was surprised, because I'm never surprised at who people are voting for. I've been doing it long enough, but it was eye-opening.
Yeah, you were taken a little bit aback. You.
Yeah, and I want to continue to do that, because I think that we need to have that conversation. I know that, I think that people don't want to believe that, but I do think it's true. I do think that Donald Trump will get a bigger African-American vote than people think. Now, he's not going to win it. Kamala Harris will win the African-American vote and the African-American male vote, but I think Donald Trump is going to get a big chunk of it. And I do think it's socioeconomic, and it's also education, right? The education level.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Where do you think the race stands as of today?
I think it's very tight. If young people, also same thing. I think that, let me just be honest with you guys. I think that there's a secret African-American male vote. I think that there's a secret woman vote, Black woman vote, and young people, college students. As you know, I was speaking to some college students, and they said that they are afraid to really tell people how they feel politically, their professors and their teachers, because they're afraid that they're going to get docked for it, right?
Yeah.
So they would never say, I'm voting for Donald Trump, or I like Trump, or I'm conservative at school, because they're worried that it will hurt them. But they said most of their friends, these are college students, many of their parents are liberals, they're voting for Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is doing a good job at it, because he realizes the power of digital and streaming media. He's going on Aiden Ross's podcast, right? Who's giving him a Cybertruck and a Rolex watch. Is going on Theo Vaughn's podcast and talking about drug use. He's going on Lex Friedman's show and talking about Jeffrey Epstein. Donald Trump is not getting asked those questions in traditional media, but it's very attractive to young men, young women, and people who don't like traditional media, and people who don't like cancel culture. And so I think they're being very smart about that. So people are in traditional media, they're looking at, nobody's going to vote for them, and this is the way it's done, and this is how the polling has always been. I don't think that those people are picked up in polling. And I know that the people I spoke with on the street, they're not going to tell that to Frank Luntz. They don't know Frank Luntz. I'm just using him as an example. They're not going to share the things that they shared with me. So I go up to him with a mic and I say, hey, how do you feel about the election? Oh my God, Don Lemon. And what do you think about this? Oh, all right, Don, I'll tell you, but I usually don't talk about it. And I think that they talk to me because they feel like they know me, but I don't think they would do that with someone they didn't know.
What do you think of the campaign she's running?
I think she's running a really good campaign. She's not making any mistakes, but she needs to make mistakes. I think that she needs to learn from Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton, and you were there at the network, I think Hillary Clinton was too buttoned up and too careful. And there's nothing, I know that the rules are different for Kamala Harris, right? Donald Trump is impervious. He's bulletproof, right? I'm not saying he should get shot or anything. I'm just using it as a term. He can get away with things that most people cannot get away with. And I understand that she is judged from her hair, really, how her hair looks, whatever, down to her shoes. She's a woman, right? Whatever. She gets judged for everything. And for her mouth, what comes out of her mouth. And, there's a lot of sexism and a lot of racism there. And the rules are different for her. But I don't believe there's anything that the Democrats can do that's worse than 34 criminal charges, being found liable for sexually assaulting a woman, for disparaging Gold Star families and members of the military. I don't think that there's anything worse. And so I think that she needs to come out and be bold. And just talking about policy is not going to win the debate for her. I think she needs to come out if she wants to do it, and she needs to say, I can't believe I'm standing on the stage with a convicted felon, that I have to be here and do this. But since I have to be here, I'm the perfect person because I'm used to dealing with people like you in a courtroom. And I think she needs to come out and punch the bully in the face. And
you think she'll do that?
I hope she'll do it. I don't know if she will. I'm hoping her people are telling her not to be so careful.
Yeah. If people have questions, we're going to come to you in just a moment. We'll bring a mic down here. But before we get to the questions, I just want to take a moment to do something a little personal. Which is that your husband is here. You and Tim got married this summer in a beautiful ceremony here in New York City. And I just thought, in front of this audience, because I like embarrassing Tim more than I like embarrassing you, I just want you to take a minute to talk about what he means to you.
I feel like I'm at my wedding again, right? Where are the cue cards? Tim is, my mom and Tim and my sister, the three most important people in my life. But now Tim is the most important person. I had to have that conversation with my mom, and she understands it. I said it's like your bond with my dad and whatever. So she understands that. But Tim is the most important person in my life. He's always really honest with me. He has lately been the rock that I need to get through the depression that I was dealing with. We had a really, really tough and personal talk the other day about life and moving forward. And I'll share it. He said, listen, if you're the best at what you do, you're a star. And that shit that happened to you at CNN, it's over. And you don't need to worry about it. You don't have to talk about it. Just look at what you've done and look at what you've accomplished. And I've watched the convention. I've watched a lot of the coverage. And the only thing that broke through besides the stars on the stage was your coverage. And you were able to do that without a network behind you. You're a badass motherfucker, is what he said. Sorry. Pardon me.
It's okay. Okay, it's okay. We're not in a house of worship, Brandon.
So,
It's okay.
but Tim has that effect on me, and Tim believes in family. He has a very big family, and he believes in family, and he has renewed my faith in family and humanity. And I don't think that I would be here without him. So I love you. But we had a great wedding.
You did.
Oh
have
my
a great
God,
wedding.
we had the best wedding. Everyone loves. I'm so happy that everyone loved the reception. They loved dancing. They loved partying. They loved everyone being together. I'm sorry for saying a bad word in a house of worship. I'm really sorry. Apologies. But I know God will forgive me. I've done worse things.
Well, this book is about your search for God, so you know.
But what I like most I like the vows. I like the vows, and I liked how we incorporated our own personal history with an Irish blessing and jumping over the broom, which is an African tradition, which is on the inside cover.
Yeah, inside back. I think.
Inside back of the book, it's us jumping the broom at our wedding. So.
Hi, Kate. Hi, how are you? All right. So, does anybody in the room? I have questions from online, but does anybody in the room have questions? Yes, sir. Please identify yourself.
I don't know if you guys will know who you are.
No, it's okay. No, it's okay. I just want to say this has been fun. But do you believe that traditional media, mainstream media, has lost young people today? And the second part is, you're going to write another book.
Am I going to write another book?
You're going to write another book.
Okay, I'll answer the second one first. I don't know if I want to write another book. It's like, as you know, I guess I will, but it is like putting your heart out there for people to just stomp on it and stab. And you don't know, how it's going to be received, what the reviews are going to say, if people are going to buy it. Did I say too much? So yeah, I'll probably write another book, but I think it's going to be a minute. Do I think you said mainstream media, they lost young people? Yeah. I don't think they've lost. I think they're losing young people. And listen, I don't mean that targeted to anything. It's not CNN or whatever. I think look, the analytics and everything will show you people are getting their news, social media, TikTok, that sort of thing. But I don't think it's appealing to young people because, especially after the pandemic, people became so used to being casual. If you look at the sort of casual attire, people don't wear ties anymore. I went down to Wall Street to look for finance bros. I couldn't find any. There's no like Wall Street. Everything is just sort of expanded. It's not as concentrated as it was. And so I think when young people look on television and they see people with face full of makeup and like the hair and the suit and the cocktail dress, it's not relatable to them anymore. And they're like, why am I watching this? And I found that when I was on the road, that actually the people who were the most informed were the people who got their news digitally but read, not just one digitally in one place, not just like on the Fox News website or on the MSNBC website or whatever, but when they or not just on TikTok, when they went to a number of different places. And the people who were the least informed were the people who sat in front of the television all day and watched TV. Because they said by the time they got to the end of a news fight, they forgot what the issue was about. So
yes, sir.
When you talk about the Bible being stories, how do you deal with the fact that it condones slavery, and it was the basis for the South saying that slavery was permitted, and also the Southern Baptists separated from the other Baptists because they were pro-slave? So how do you deal with that historical background?
Well, I just said that, the Bible is not historical. I mean, it's not a history book, right? And that that the Bible has been used to separate people. So I do talk about it in the book. You'll have to read the book, but I discuss all of that. I also talk about a doctrine, right? I don't know if you remember, I forget the doctrine it is, that gave domain to Christians over all of America. Do you know what I'm talking about? So, and then that led to sort of the 3/5 thing, which led to the Electoral College. Manifest Destiny. Thank you. Manifest Destiny, Anna. Thank you. I was trying to remember that. I remember backstage, I was like, what is it called? Manifest Destiny. And so that there's correlation between that and how, not from the Bible, but how people used the Bible and used religion as a way of dominance. So it's in there.
Was there a question over here? Oh.
Thank you. I have a question. You mentioned Kamala Harris being a former prosecutor, and I love the odds of a prosecutor versus a felon every single time, right?
Because you're a
stage.
prosecutor.
Well, yes, but it is clear that she's the first of many things. But instead of leaning into that, it seems that she is sort of going right down the middle. If she does what you think maybe she should do and be bold and lean in, don't you think then that could feed into the narrative of the angry Black woman, the aggressive Black woman, and make her actually less attractive to the moderate Republican or the independent, that may lean left or may lean right?
Yeah. Yes, Sonny. I mean, like I said, the rules are different for her. So she's got to be careful in some sense, but I think that there is a lesson in it from 2016 for her. And I think people will appreciate her candor because what voters are asking, what they're saying is that we don't know her. We want to get to know her and we don't know her. And so far, she's not giving us anything. This is not me saying this. I'm not saying this because I couldn't say this when I was in traditional media. I'm on the side of democracy. And what does that mean? That means I'm on the side of Kamala Harris. So I couldn't say that because you're not supposed to. I'm not picking a side. And I probably wouldn't say that if Donald Trump wasn't a unique threat to this country and democracy and to institutions. And I think the media should conduct itself as such because that is just a fact. But yes, so I do agree with you. But I think she has to find a way between now and November 5th to figure out how to get people to know her. And I don't know if that's going to be in an interview, sitting down. I don't know how she's going to do it, but I think the biggest audience that she will have is going to be that debate. And she's going to have to do it. I think she's going to have to. I think the debate, she's set up to lose in the debate. I think the microphone should be on. And I think no matter what, if he just stands up, they're going to say he won the debate.
You mentioned the church demonizing various groups, such as people of color. Are you aware how the church has demonized Jewish people, whether it was the Crusades, whether it was blood libels, whether it's church-led pogroms? Are you familiar with that history?
I didn't hear the last part of your question.
Are you familiar with the history of the church demonizing Jewish groups?
I tell the history of the church demonizing all people, but I am a Christian, so I'm telling the story through a Christian voice, a Christian narrative. But yes, I talk about in the book about how the church demonizes all people. And I think I mentioned that.
They made a special attention to Jewish people.
And I do talk about in the book, there's a lot of, this book is just not about religion. There's a lot in here that relates to what's happening in the world now politically. And we talk about Israel and Gaza. And so, yes, you will find all of that in the book. I encourage you to read it.
Yep, right here.
Hi, Don.
Hi, how are you?
My question for you is when you experience the Holy Ghost, when you fell out your aunt's, when you fell.
My grandmother experienced the Holy Ghost. I think I did too.
So my question is, did you experience that again in your adult life? And did that change your relationship with God? Did you experience any other type of gifts after that, like dreams or visions? I was just curious, like once you was mounted with the Holy Spirit, your life is supposed to no longer be the same. Did you experience anything different from before?
Thank you. I've always had a close relationship with God, but that relationship that I had with God didn't necessarily match what the people around me were telling me, because I knew that I was blessed. I knew that I was talented. I knew that I was smart. And, since you mentioned it, I don't mention this in the book, but I do remember having, when I was living in Philadelphia, and my friend Sarah, her name is Sarah Versa, I worked at Channel 6, at Fox 6 News, atop Red Mountain. And I just moved from there in St. Louis. I'd moved to Philadelphia. I went to St. Louis first for a year, and then I went to Philadelphia. And I was in my loft, and I had this it was like a dream. It was like God was talking to me and telling me what was going to happen in my life. And the thing is that I don't know if it's because I wanted it to happen or if it was, actually me having that sort of vision thing, but I accepted it for what it was. And that was my faith, and I actually believed that God was speaking to me. Yes, I do.
Hi, Don. So one of the things we were talking about earlier, that Trump has not been held accountable, nor has he been given the attention that he deserves for all the things he's done wrong. We may never have that day in America. But do you think that we've gone too far and let him go too far in being able to run for president after all the mistakes, the mishaps, and the illegal dramas that he's gone through?
Do you think that we have let him go too far? Is that what you said? I mean, I tried. Yes, but I don't know if it's we. I think it's, I think America has. And I think that, yes, and I think that he's co-opted people to believe that he is that character on Celebrity Apprentice. And he's not. And I do think that people like him and they support him, and he is revered because he speaks for them. He's saying what they want to say about other people. He's doing their dirty work for them. And so they're allowing him, in a way, he's a Trojan horse, right? They're allowing him they're actually pushing him to speak for them. And, I know everything is transactional. And so it's not just poor people or uneducated people, obviously, who support him. There are some very smart, very wealthy people, and it's transactional. There are things in it for them, and that's why people are supporting him. But I don't think that we've dealt with, especially racism in this country. And to say that there is not a very racist element about Donald Trump and MAGA we're in denial. We'd be lying to ourselves. And I know that even now, the media tries to pretend like everything is equal. This isn't equal. Let me tell you, when Joe Biden was in the race, and I could see that he was slowing down. I don't know if do you remember this? It was like in 2022. Karine Jean-Pierre came on the air, and I asked her point blank. I said, the president is obviously slowing down. Do you think that he can make it through a second term? She was outraged. I got so much pushback. I can't believe you're even asking that question. That's what journalists do. And so they were mad at me, but I mean, I'm not blind or crazy. And I thought that question should be asked. So I will say this. I say that to say this, is that when Joe Biden was in the race, and what was happening with Joe Biden is something that's natural, that's going to happen to most of us, or all of us, if we're lucky enough to live that long, right? You're going to slow down. You're going to forget things. I forget things now. You're going to walk into a room and go, wait, why did I come into this room? Or where is my cell phone as you're on the phone with people? You're going to do all of those things. You're going to slow down. You're not going to walk and move like you used to. That is part of the natural process of being a human being. What is not natural is to try to overthrow a government or to change the results of an election, to inspire an insurrection, to sexually assault a woman or women, and then to talk about it in a press conference and say, well, they're too ugly and she wouldn't be the chosen one. None of that is normal and natural, but we try to pretend in the media that it is. Those two things are not equal. One person is dealing with a natural human process. And there should be empathy, and we should understand that is just what's going to happen. Instead, we demonize it and say, oh my gosh, I hear people, where's his diaper? And it's awful. And those same people don't say, how the hell can we elect someone who uses poor people to pay his legal bills? Why would you elect someone? And we should not be in the media putting those two things on equal platform, people who are speaking for those things. Yes, we do need to hear people who support. We need to hear from people who support Donald Trump. We do need to hear from them. But we shouldn't put those two things on the same level. As I said to Oliver Darcy the other day, yes, sunlight is the best disinfectant, but it also causes weeds to grow. And it also can feed things that are harmful to our well-being. And so we have to sort of figure out what to do about it without stifling free speech and without not informing the electorate. And that's a tough thing for the media to do right now. And so, yeah, I think, that's all part of it. And we should be more careful about it.
I just want to clarify one thing. When you're on your phone, you forget where your cell phone is?
Oh, yeah. I'll be talking to my mom and I'll say, "Where is my phone?" She goes, "What are you talking to me on?"
Yeah. Okay. Yes, right there.
So it's not a question, it's a statement. But I was speaking to my boyfriend yesterday, and I was talking about, a lot of times when you watch some of these TV shows and these news cable shows, they become like part of your family. So I watched you for years, Don, and I would come home at night and I'd be tired and get into my jammies, put CNN on, and I watched you and I watched Chris, and you were like part of my family. And sometimes you were cocky a little bit, and I said, "Come on, Don, I can't believe you said that." Talking to you on the TV, I want you to know that I personally miss you so much. And I wish you were back. And I've turned now to another cable channel since you left. I just want you to know that.
Oh, thank you for that. But I would love you to support my former colleagues because they're the best in the business and I do love them. So I'm sorry that I hear that every single day, every single day. And I was with someone and I was walking by and they said, "Hey, boss here." But they didn't say. Someone said, "Hey, Don Lemon, I love you. I miss you. Come back to CNN." And then as I was running here I took a city bike here because the subway was late. And I didn't want to take a car because I thought I'd be sitting in traffic. So that's how smart I am. But the other day, very flattering, someone yelled at me as I was getting into a taxi, "Don Lemon, I miss you. You're the last appointment television on CNN." And I was like, "Oh, wow, thank you." But I have mixed emotions about that because I do want you to support my former colleagues because they are the best and I love them.
I think the current morning show on CNN is appointment TV. Anyway, right over here.
Was that a slight to me?
No, it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with members of the CNN morning show that are in the audience.
Oh, hey,
so
Kate.
Anyway, right here.
Hi, Don.
Hey, Ken, how are you?
Never mind. Anyway, yes, sir.
I want to thank you for being here and being so open and so honest. I have a question related to democracy.
Where are you? Sorry. Oh, right there. Okay, sorry.
I have a question related to democracy because you're so passionate about democracy. And that goes back to Citizens United decision and the effect today and dark money and the Supreme Court, especially. I've been dying when I watch you on TV. I was dying to hear your views and your thinking about where that's taking our democracy and stealing our democracy.
About dark money and
Yes.
Yeah, well, there's a book called Dark Money that can explain it a lot better than I can. It changed the game. Yes, the White House did it, but I also think that even more so than that obviously changed the game. But I think what also changed the game is what I write about in this book, and that is the effect that evangelicals, mainly evangelicals and religious nationalists, the effect that they have on our government and our country. Right now, basically, it's minority rule in this country. And, I think that we're going to have to deal with that. Or I think that, people talk about a civil war. I think the civil war will be that. I think the majority of the country who really want the country to move in a certain way and who want progress, and I don't mean progressives in the way that politically, but they want actual progress, I think those people are going to rebel soon. They're going to be tired of being sort of ruled by the minority in this country and people who, have 8 people in one state and they still have the same number of representatives. It's just not a fair system.
Yes, sir. Right there.
Hello, Don.
Hey, how are you?
Okay. I read your first 2 books, which I really enjoyed, and looking forward to reading this one. Do you feel that you're given the credit for moving, the Black movement and the gay movement forward as much as you have? Because I felt that because I had a relationship with a Black man for 5 years, and you seem to be the first one to just kind of and make it and put people at ease when you're on TV talking about it. And I was wondering if do you get enough response, from about that.
You mean, am I getting my flowers for being a trailblazer? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
No,
Yes.
I will say though, I do, you know, I can talk about myself in that way, but I do hear from people all the time, younger people, they say, I watched you growing up. And I'm like, oh my God, I feel really old because now you're in college. I do think that I made it easier for people to come out in this business. When I came out, I think the only people who were out, I think Rachel Maddow and then and Thomas Roberts, who worked for HLN for a time, and Rachel, and that was it. And then I came out and I thought, it's over. I'm going to go have to do something else. And then, but actually, once I did that, it gave me a sense of autonomy and freedom that I did not expect to have. And so I leaned into that. And I think that if I don't talk about those issues as a gay person and as a person of color, as a Black person, then why am I sitting in that seat? Because someone has to bring those issues to fore, whether people want to hear about it or not. This is America, and we're supposed to deal with those kinds of things. And I do think that we have to stop silencing voices of people who are provocateurs, because provocateurs, like myself, can be good for you know, the zeitgeist and for the country, as well as people who just are, you know, sort of moderates and just sit there and, you know, good evening, everybody. Here's what's happening on the news. Our next story. That's not what I do. That's not what I do. So, am I getting my flowers? I don't know, but I never really think about it. But thank you for that.
By the way, I should tell. By the way, we're down here. I should tell people in the book that you actually called Jesus the most influential shit disturber of all time.
He is. You need shit disturbers, and he is. I mean, look, he went to the temple and he turned over the tables.
Yeah.
Right. And
now, by the way, I want to be very clear here, so there's no confusion. I am not comparing you to Jesus in any way. Okay. In any way. So, like, let's just be clear.
I am created in His image.
You're a shit disturber, but that's about it. Anyway, I think we had a. Oh, right there in the middle. Yeah.
This will be quick. My
Hi,
concern is that neither candidate is going to get to 70, and it's going to be thrown into the House, and we won't count.
What are the chances that it gets that neither candidate gets to 270 electoral votes and it's 269, and the House decides?
Look, I'm not the political. That's not my bailiwick, but I think obviously it can happen. I think it's that close. I think it's that close, and then we might have a constitutional crisis. Do you think?
Oh, well, then the House would decide. It's possible, unlikely, but possible.
So it would be a different sort of hanging Chad situation that we would have to deal with, and I can't tell you how that would turn out.
Well, the House gets to decide, and good luck. Was there a question right here? Yeah.
Hey, Don. I'm a subscriber to CNN's Reliable Sources newsletter, and in Brian Stelter's return newsletter, after being an independent journalist for 2 years, he said he never thought he would return. So if the new regime at CNN made you an offer you couldn't refuse, would you ever return?
I don't think that's ever going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen.
Don, hi. A former colleague of mine wrote an Instagram post, and she said, I'm not trying to get Donald Trump to meet my daughter. I'm voting for him on policy. And I was so angry at this, because how do you suggest we talk to people when they use religion of God uses imperfect people? God used David because David was a man after his own heart. His policies, everybody around me, they are registered to vote and they vote. They're voting for Kamala. But I'm trying to reach people who don't feel that way, who feel like his policy, or when they use God, I don't know how you argue against that. And I'm scared as a Black woman with a son. I'm scared. So I'm trying to talk to young people. I'm trying to talk to people who are leaning towards Trump, and I don't know how to reach them.
I think the answer to that is God does use people, but that doesn't mean that they have to be president. It doesn't mean that he has to be president. Look, but I can't tell people who to vote for. And I don't know how to answer. I don't really know how to answer that question, but
I was very clear that that was not the case.
I'm gonna read something that I think is important before we get out of here, and I think that it might help you, especially being a woman and a woman of color. You know, and it has to do with a woman's right to choose, right, and to decide what's better for her medically. If you look at infant mortality and all of that and maternal mortality, it happens more among Black women. And you can explain all of these things to them, but it happens. But this is one thing that was really important for me to write about is women's reproductive rights. I was at a dinner the other night and someone said, "What is the biggest issue for you?" And I said, "Women's reproductive rights." And he looked at me like, "Wait, what?" And I said, "Yeah, because that means that I'm thinking about the Supreme Court. And if they can take away a woman's right, then they could take away my right and my marriage and rights that we've established as people of color. And so, you know, if they come for someone else, they can come for you." So that is the biggest issue for me in this election. And I'm going to read something about it whenever we're done with questions that I want to leave you with.
Don, you've cried so much today, you can compete with Van Jones. But listen,
I don't know about
you
that.
no, you seem a lot more vulnerable and a lot more reflective. It feels like you've gone through a dark tunnel and come out the other side. How has what's happened to you in the last couple of years changed you, and how has it changed how people treat you?
It's weird. I think that people are actually more open to me now. I remember Anderson Cooper told a story about his mom when people would say, you know, bad things happen to me. Why me? And she would say, why not me? And so I sort of had that attitude about it, that there's a reason that this happened to me. And I have to have faith and I have to trust that God is going to show me the way and that there is something positive that will come out of this, whether it's timing in the business, whether it's doing my own thing, whether it's being more open, more vulnerable, or being more outspoken, whatever it is, then it will happen. But I think people are more open. Women come up to me all the time and they say, I don't really understand what happened to you. I don't get it. And I don't think that you're a bad person. I actually really love you. Where's Paula? I saw Paula here. Hi, Paula. Paula sent me a text. Can I read your text? Paula sent me a text the other day, and I get it all the time from people. Paula, thank you for coming. She came all the way from Philadelphia. But Paula Taylor said to me the other day, she said, I thoroughly enjoy watching you engage with people in the field and discuss pertinent issues. It's wonderful to see you in your element, as you are incredibly well suited for this. The women of America love everything Don XOXO. And so I don't know, I think people are more open to me now, and they feel like something bad happened to me, like I don't like what happened to you. So yeah.
You know, I would say that if you knew anybody who had like a daytime talk show where you could explore that conversation and this book, it would be great for them to have you on to push this book. I understand. I don't know if you know anybody like that.
I don't know, like,
you know,
Sherry. Maybe we can call Oprah. Oprah doesn't sound on anymore.
I don't know anybody who has a daytime talk show like that. But if you could find them, that'd be a great place to discuss this book, or like a morning show on a big cable news network. If there were some women who hosted a show like that,
on a big cable network. Hi, Steph Rule. I see.
Yeah, like if there was like a show on like really late at night on a big cable network, you could talk about this book. That would be fantastic. I just want to say, you know, as we wrap this up, and then I know you're going to read something, but we're going to wrap this up. But you write in the book something that I thought was really moving. You write that you were never at odds with God.
No.
Your struggle was with an evangelical hierarchy that sought to shame you, shut you out,
marginalize you,
and blame you for the state of a broken world that they themselves had helped to fracture. At the end of the day, because of everything that happened to you and what you've gone through, you set out on this search for God in America. Before you read what you're going to read to us in closing, what did you find on that search? And how would you characterize your relationship with God today?
Oh, I have a very strong relationship with God. I don't think I'd be here. Oh, sorry. I don't think I'd be here without that relationship. And I'll just put it this way. I wanted to reestablish my relationship with God and strengthen my relationship because of the people like my sister and my dad and my father and my grandmother. I need to believe, I have to believe that I'll see them one day again.
That's beautiful.
And so
So,
why I have to do it.
Don, I'm gonna, as I know there's something you want to read before we go, but I just want to say on behalf of the Stryker Center at Temple Emmanuel and everybody who's here, how grateful that we are to you for coming here and talking to us tonight. The book is I Once Was Lost, and it's out tomorrow. And congratulations on the book. And I would just say also, congratulations on your wedding, and congratulations on what you're doing. It's really a huge tribute to you and your talent, and we're all incredibly proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. I love you. Tim, I love you. Allison, thank you. Maria, Sarah, everyone, Anna, Sunny, all of you who've always been by my side, thank you so much for coming. Sherry, I can't believe that you're here. Thank you. I wish maybe Sherry has a show or something so she can put me on. But anyways, so thank you for coming. But this is when I talk about in the book why, one of the reasons I wrote this and why it's so important to what's happening now. I don't know if you guys are old enough. Sunny, you've read the book and you've heard this, and I read it. We read a book reading. Do you remember the Silent Scream in the 80s, the movie where they tried to, terrorize, people who believed in abortions to say that a fetus was screaming and in pain or whatever? It turned out to be a lie. So anyways, so I have this friend, and I wanted to talk to her about her experience. And she shared her experience with me in the book. Her name is not Fiona, but I use it in the book. So she said to me, in the late 1980s, Fiona and her husband were happily expecting their second child. She was well into the second trimester when things took a tragic turn. We couldn't afford an ultrasound, so we didn't know anything was wrong until my water broke and I went into labor. They said the fetus had developed in a way that was incompatible with life. And I was like, what does that even mean? Basically, the organs were growing outside its body. My husband was crying. I was in a lot of pain and scared shitless, at risk for sepsis, and no one was helping me. They said I couldn't have food or water because I might need emergency surgery, and they couldn't give me anything for pain because it might slow down the labor, and they couldn't give me anything to speed up the labor because that would be a late-term abortion, which was illegal. I had to wait for the fetal heartbeat to stop. After 3 days, I was just begging, help me. Please, you have to make it stop. And the nurse said, instead of begging for an abortion, you should be praying for a miracle. And then she offered to pray with me. I guess that was her way of trying to help, maybe, or maybe it was just a way to feel better about herself. Decades later, Fiona told me this story with tears in her eyes. When I was in college, she said, I was a victim of a violent sexual assault. On so many levels, this was worse. And in some ways, it felt exactly the same. I didn't know what to say other than, oh, Fiona, I'm so sorry that happened to you. 30 years, and it's no better, she said. It's actually worse. Women will suffer and die over this. I asked her if her experience had any effect on her faith, and she said, you can't blame God, but my faith in people certainly went to hell. I haven't been back to church since then. I was a Republican before, now I'm independent. I'll never again vote against a woman's right to make private medical decisions. It's about so much more than abortion. And it's so not how the pro-life movement sold it to us. That's part of the book, and there are many more stories like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. We'll see you soon.